We got a lot to talk about, though. And joining me now, member of the Freedom Caucus, member of the House of Representatives, Republican 7th District, Virginia, that's the Central Virginia area, Congressman Dr. Dave Brat. Dr. Brat, welcome. Good morning.
Hey, John. Great to be on.
All right, so you're one of the no votes on what I'm calling now crony care, but we understand that the White House staff is pulling out all the stops. They had Ted Cruz and Mike Lee at Mar-a-Lago for 3 hours, I think, on Saturday, talking with the staff, trying to renegotiate this thing. But as I look at it, I don't know what they're going to negotiate. This thing is so bad. How do you stand now? Has anything changed, Dave?
Nothing in concrete yet, but I'm real hopeful having those folks down to Mar-a-Lago. They're all focusing on the question I've been talking about for 2 weeks, and that is, how do you get prices down? And they're all in agreement that if you don't have a concrete way to bring prices down, we can't go with the bill. Because the last time we did the go-around with Obamacare, the sole focus was on coverage and nothing on prices. And so that's the big sticking point. And then the main driver of prices are the insurance regulations, where the federal government, that's the central problem for conservatives. The federal government is mandating the product you have to buy in this new bill. And that's the cost driver. So a young person cannot go out and buy a cheap bill, a cheap product, insurance product, even in our current bill. And so we haven't got in any promises down on paper, but that's the sticking point.
Okay, so let's be realistic. We keep hearing that there's going to be some master negotiation that changes the bill, yet the leadership, Dave Brat, says you're voting for it. How can they possibly change this thing?
Yeah, well,
how does this just explain?
The politics is obviously overwhelming the policy, and so there's too much logic up there. Let's just pass something. And we'll deal with it later. And the major problem with that is you're going to put into law something that resembles Obamacare is structurally. And it was on the front page of National Journal last week up in D.C., right? The conservative think tanks and the liberal think tanks all agree, right? They all agree the basic structure of Obamacare remains the same in our bill. And so that's not my opinion, and I always try to point that out. And so the vote's this Thursday, and so people are saying, look, you got to just pass something. You got to vote. The bill matters, right? Let's join the team, sign up for the team, and vote for the bill. And the problem with that is this is a once-in-a-century opportunity, right? This is not just a little bill. This is 1/6 of the economy. And we have reconciliation right now, which is an exception, which only needs 51 votes in the Senate. And so we covered that last time, but there's all these arcane rules that we can overcome because the insurance regs have a huge budgetary impact. So we can include those. And unfortunately, that's being left behind probably by Thursday. And so then it's going to just be pure politics. Will people have the courage to stand up against a new Republican bill that has most of the architecture of Obamacare still in it?
You know, we've relitigated this. I don't want to relitigate this, Congressman, but I want you to explain something in this thing. There's really two things that are bothering people. And I got a text here from Robert in Virginia Beach. Great text, Congressman. I want to read this to you. It says, when I first started working, I paid the same premium as the older folks I work with. I did that all my life. Now that I'm old, I'm supposed to pay a higher premium? Why?
Yeah, well, that's what's going on. And, I mean, everybody just thinks back before Obamacare kicked in, right? Insurance wasn't cheap, but most people, it's half the price. And they're paying half the price, and they used to have, deductibles in the hundreds of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's double the price, and, quadruple the deductible. Everybody I know has at least $5,000 up to $10,000 on the bronze plan in Obamacare. It's $11,000 is the average deductible, and no one has that money. And so that's what we're talking. The main nugget there is we have a health care problem, right? Everyone's talking about insurance coverage. Well, you can cover everybody, You can cover the poor and have insurance coverage, but they can't use the product because they can't afford the deductible.
Right.
And so what we really have is a health care problem, and we all of our plans have ways of dealing with the transition and pre-existing conditions, and about 5% of the people are over 50% of the costs, healthcare costs for the whole country. 5% people, over 50% of the costs. That's not an insurance problem, right? Those folks can't get insurance. That's the problem. And so we have to have a healthcare solution for them, because when you put them in the pool, or when you set up the architecture and the system to address their needs with insurance, it's the wrong target, right?
Right.
They can't get insurance. That's
Right.
the whole problem. And so we have to take care of them and get them the health care they need, and then set up a rational free market setup that doesn't reward the cronies, doesn't reward the special interests up in D.C. And unfortunately, somebody's getting all these billions of dollars, right? I mean,
Right.
you could just work it backwards. We're paying in way more with higher deductibles. That money's going somewhere, and it certainly isn't going to get better health outcomes.
So the other question is, if it's such a great plan as Republican leadership is saying it is, why is there a provision in there, Congressman, to ensure that insurance companies make money no matter what, and they get the bailout if it were to fail? How does that reconcile that for us?
Well, that's just the dance that's going on. That's the normal D.C. dance, right? And so if you look at insurance, I mean, we're forcing these companies basically not to be insurance companies because they can't analyze risk anymore. Bankers used to analyze risk of housing, and then we had liar loans, and we told the bankers, you got to give a mortgage to anybody that wants one, right? We had liar loans and all that kind of stuff. That caused the housing crisis. Now in the insurance market, the insurance companies, right? And so this is political. I'm not banging on my friends that do insurance. They're forced into this by government, and they can't assess risk, which is their entire job. They're told you have to cover these people at this price right here. Well, if that makes you bankrupt, then you're going to have to jack the price up over there, right, of people in this category to cover your losses over there. And we all know in economics that's called a distortion, and one distortion leads to another and another and another. And then you end up with socialism, and we're on the road, right, to a government takeover of health insurance if we don't get it right this time. That's why it's absolutely crucial we get a market outcome where people get to go out and shop for a lot of products and have their choice. That's the key piece that's missing in our current Republican bill.
So, Dr. Brat, the leadership is telling us that is going to come in phase 2 and phase 3. Yet, based on history, a lot of promises this leadership team has made never came through, whether it be omnibus or cromnibus or DHH funding or immigration reform or whatever they said. It never really happens, right? They pass the bill. They say there's going to be a hill to die on in some future time, and they never get there. So a lot of people are looking at this phase 3 and saying, okay, it's a ruse because to start with, you'd never get any of this past the U.S. Senate, not with the 60 vote cloture rule. So basically it's just words on a document and it's not real. That's what's concerning people, that if you don't do this all at the same time, it is never going to get there. Am I right?
Yeah, well, you're right. And you covered phase 3, right? You need 60 votes in the Senate, and we can't get one.
Yeah, we're not going to get
Democrats
60.
switch over.
Right.
And then bucket 2, phase 2, relies on the secretary. Well, they won't even put out a list of what he's going to do on the insurance regulations. That's where that comes, is in phase 2, right? That gets you more free market. If they won't even put out a list of promises what we're going to do, that's a little hint, right? So we're going to get a socialist structure, and then we're promised a little bit of free markets later, and that's not going to come. And then the most problematic part, I referred to the historical nature of this, we're told the secretary has these expansive powers to deal with regulations. That's all true. But the bill text of Obamacare is currently law, and it says the secretary shall, the secretary shall, the secretary shall. That's law. And so there's going to be court cases. And then guess who else has expansive powers as secretary? The next one. So if a Democrat president wins the next time, we're going to be playing bumper cars, right? We're going to be torquing the U.S. economy, 1/6 of the U.S. economy going this way for 4 years and then this way for 4 years. I mean, good luck. That's not how you run an economy. That's not how you run a country.
Okay, so let me get this straight, Congressman. So what you're saying is, because what the Republican leadership is saying is there's 3 phases. We already hate phase 1, but they're saying, all right, phase 2, the secretary, that right now being Secretary of Health and Human Services, former Congressman, my Congressman, by the way, Tom Price, would have all this power to get all this stuff done. But what you're saying is there's 2 things the matter with this. Number 1 is that the original law will not, that piece is not repealed. So whatever the former Secretary of HHS said, that's going to stand. And if Tom Price tries to overturn it, they're going to do what? Challenge it in court.
Oh, yeah, it'll be just like the Obama overreach on amnesty.
Right. So they're going
to... a lot of that got overturned by the courts because he was in violation of law, and the health care law was written by Democrats, so guess which way the language reads? It's mainly Democrat.
Right. So he's going to get challenged on that, and that is never going to happen, even if he got some of it done. The problem with that, as you're saying, Congressman Brat, is that if we get a Democratic president and whenever, then they can change it again.
Right.
And then the third thing is you go to phase 3, where they say, okay, phase 3 is the big one. That's where we get all the market solutions and we go interstate and we create all these new insurance companies. They'll come up and there'll be this great competition and prices will come down. In order to get there, you need 60 votes in the Senate. You'll never get there. So that's a complete ruse. That will never happen. So our argument...
You need phase 2 to be successful because you can have competition across state lines in phase 3, but if all you can shop for is a socialist product, then good luck with your shopping.
Oh, this thing is such a mess.
It makes no sense. So you first have to get rid of the regulations that say you're getting a federal one-size-fits-all insurance product. And we haven't done that yet. And it's going to be very hard to do that in phase 2. And I want a promise of that. I mean, if leadership wants us to vote on phase 1, they need to absolutely put that on paper and make those promises. And even then, I have a very hard time getting there.
Let's get to Trump's budget that he rolled out last week, downsizing federal employees. This is a drawdown not seen since the budget after the Second World War. Are there things in this budget that you're excited about?
Yeah, well, and this is just the, kind of the cheerleading aspirational budget that it comes up front. We always had it, and it always balanced in 10 years. And it promised to repeal Obamacare in the past, right? Now we're seeing how hard that is in reality. And so what you're looking for is the vision. And so Trump is showing the vision fits kind of the constitutional framework, right? The first and foremost responsibility we have is to keep our nation safe. Our defenses have been corroded over the past decade, so he's going to build that up. National security, he's going to build up. Homeland security, he's going to build up. In a substantial way, and then he's looking for the savings on the rest of the domestic budget without getting at the mandatories. Mm-hmm. And so that, in a nutshell, is the budget. And it stays relatively flat. It's not a huge increase in spending, but it doesn't have the other pieces in it yet, right? It doesn't have the infrastructure in it. It doesn't have the wall in it. It doesn't have the big spending. And so that'll come later.
Okay, so it's a start, as you're saying, kind of the laying out what the vision is. All right, Congressman, let me ask you this. What's been the pressure put on you by House leadership on Ryan Care?
Well, it's kind of a full court press, and I'm lucky. I'm one of the few that just ran, almost totally as an independent without getting all of the big money and all the connections and the crony stuff, right? So I've been a independent player based on principle, right? Adam Smith and James Madison and the Virginia Republican Creed. And I've tried to stay true to that. I got a 100% voting score with most of the people who track those votes. And so I get pressure, but they know I've promised my constituents, right? If I voted for something that's not free market, everybody would know, right? What's wrong, right? Why has Dave left the reservation? And so I'm kind of put myself in a box, and it's a good thing, right? I put myself in a constitutional free market rational box, and I'm happy to be there and vote that way. And so leadership knows that's how I roll.
Okay, so you're not really getting the kind of arm twisting that some of the others might because of your history, and they're not going to be able to threaten you with a committee assignment or things like that, which they do a lot of the other people. All right, so that makes sense. So in order for this thing to pass, they can only afford to lose 21 Republican votes in the House. The newspaper, The Hill, came out with a study. It said that 17 were solid no. I went over that list. That seemed pretty solid to me. There was another 8 that they're saying are maybes, leaning no.
Yeah.
But you know,
and that article's a little weak because they had Meadows in the undecided camp,
that seemed
He's the
odd
head
to
of the
me.
Freedom Caucus.
Yeah.
And the Freedom Caucus has taken, we have 30 or 40 members. We've taken a position, which is an 80% position, in favor of the 2015 repeal bill formally, right? So that article missed some major points. And then there's many moderates, and then there's a bunch of liberals who are going to vote against as well, because on the other side, they're not happy with the CBO scoring on coverage.
So basically, the 17 is solid, but as you said, they have leaning no. They've got Lou Barletta in Pennsylvania. I mean, I'm going to get Lou on my show, but I don't see the leadership getting him. They're definitely not going to get Mo Brooks. They also had Mark Meadows, which you mentioned that, like, he's your chairman of the Freedom Caucus.
Right.
I mean, if half of his caucus is voting one way, he's not going to vote the other. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. No, that's right. Right.
So I think, but having followed this day for so long, and I was said this earlier, you can almost predict what's going to happen. It's going to pass by one vote, just like it always does. They'll get somebody at the end that they'll promise something to. It'll pass by one. And then it'll go on to the Senate. And then you look at the Senate, and, I mean, it's just DOA. I don't see how it...
Yeah, I know. That's right. The Senate, I know. And so, but then I don't think it's going to pass the House.
Really?
Just because everybody knows you're going to take a yes vote on a bill that no one likes, right? The calls coming into our office are overwhelmingly no. And so you're going to take a yes vote knowing the people are opposed to it, and then the Senate's going to vote no on it. And so it's the worst scenario you could be in, and no one wants to be there. And so what I'm saying is leadership's putting huge pressure to get a yes vote, but they're putting a lot of people back home at risk.
Wow, you're right. So you vote in favor of it. Your constituents are mad. You invite a primary. People are outraged. I said on CNN the other night, they asked me what my level of phone calls was. 95 no. I mean, it's 95% no. The callers and texts and emails and that I get, 95% no. And then so you got to back something that can't get made into law anyway. What's the point?
Right. And then you've got it. You voted yes for it. Everyone's mad. It doesn't go through. You got to renegotiate it again, and then we'll see what happens.
All right, we're almost out of time. Final question, Dr. Dave Brat, Congressman, 7th District, Virginia, Republican. Do you have another town hall meeting coming up anytime soon?
We got 3 more weeks up in D.C., and then we're going to get back and go through the district like crazy. So, yeah, we'll have, I don't know exactly what town hall format we got coming up, but we'll be meeting with constituents in about every way imaginable. And then I've done media this week on every issue. And so it's kind of funny to see the left was out, with the indivisible groups attacking me and saying, you got to represent us too and listen to us. Well, now I'm voting no on the Republican bill, so I hope they love me, right? So it's kind of a strange world we live in. I haven't gotten a lot of thank you cards yet, but maybe they're coming.
Dr. Dave Brat, Congressman, Republican, 7th District. Where's the love for Dave from the Democrats?
Right, I know.
He's voting no.
Coming my way.
Where's the love for Dave, man?
I
Come
love
on.
everybody out there, too. I always say that, and the press never picks it up. The left, I represent them. I want to do what's best for the whole country always. Make that clear.
All right. Dave Brat, not feeling the love from the Democrats when he's voting their way on this bill. Right. It doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
Dave, we love you for whatever that's worth.
You.
All right.
I know.
Dave Brat.
I appreciate it, too.
We love you, Dave. In fact, you're my wife, the Fräulein's favorite congressman in the history of politics. So just want you to know that.